Hey everyone, and welcome to Screams After Midnight. I am Peter. That is my dear boy Tim.
Ooh, the boy. I like it.
Yes. You know what? I'm just giving in a little bit. I think I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of fighting it. So I'll give you a little. I'll throw you a little bone once in a while. And there's your bone for this episode. Cherish it. Cherish it with all your heart.
Look forward to more bones.
This is a horror movie podcast. We talk about horror films on here. We watch a movie, we get together, we talk about it. Occasionally Tim reveals his bad taste in movies like The Boy and Bram's The Boy 2, and also possibly Leprechauns 1 through 17. So this episode we are looking at a newish release, which is Relic, which is an Australian film. And I did not know this until it started, but the logo came up saying it's a Stan original, which blew my mind. Are you familiar with Stan, Tim? Do you know what Stan is?
Stan Lee? I don't know.
No, Stan, there was a time, I'm pretty sure Australia has Netflix now, but there was a time when Australia did not have Netflix. Instead, it had Stan. So Stan's a streaming service in Australia, and apparently this movie is a Stan original.
Oh, all right. Well, get on Stan.
I laughed when I saw Stan. I did. I laughed when I saw the Stan original thing come up.
What can we say? We stand Stan.
Don't encourage them.
See, it took me a little longer. I was probably still halfway through the movie until I put it together, because I was just like, I kept thinking, like, wait a minute. All right, these people are British, right? I was like, do they have a Melbourne in Britain too? Am I not aware of?
Admittedly, their accents aren't super strong. They're not like extreme Australian accents, but you can hear it. If you're listening for it, you can definitely hear the Australian accents coming through. The side characters especially seem to have thicker Australian accents.
Yeah, and there is a scene where a kangaroo attacks them. That was kind of the giveaway.
Mm-hmm. Yes, there was kangaroos and alligators. Yeah. I saw crocodiles. It's crocodiles in Australia, right?
Well, when I went, I didn't see any, but there's echidnas for sure.
Thanks for your insight. In fact, yeah, you've been to Australia. You should have recognised every location in this movie. You fool. So, yes, we'll start spoiler free as we always do. We'll give you warning before we go into spoilers. The basic premise of this is that so it's about three generations of a family, three women in a family. You've got Ellie Mortimer plays Kay, who's the kind of the middle one, the mother, well, for lack of a better term, and then her daughter is Sam, who's like 22ish. She's sort of dropped out of university. She's maybe going back, maybe not. We'll see. And then the grandmother, Kay's mother, Edna, and the plot really kicks off because Edna has went missing and no one knows where she is, and the two younger generation come to sort of check on the house, see if they can find her. They sort of stay for a couple of days. And mysteriously, after a couple of days, Edna just reappears without not willing to discuss where she's been, seemingly even comprehending the idea that she was, technically missing, and the police were looking for her for a couple of days. As Tim's wrestling with his cat with his elbow. So that's the premise. Obviously, you're saying, well, what's the horror movie aspect here? There is like a tease of supernatural stuff going on. And where she went, and kind of the build to the final act, where there is like more full on horror stuff kind of creeping into the film. So that is the gist of Relic. For the most part, the younger two think that she's suffering from dementia, and she's forgetting where she's been, forgetting what she's done. And we see examples of that throughout the film, which is kind of the movie's big thing. Really, is that it's ultimately wherever it goes and whatever it's doing. It's kind of a metaphor for dementia. It's just an extension of it. It's kind of that thing that we often talk about in horror movies, and in fact, even science fiction movies and lots of different genres, where you take a real thing and then you sort of put it into like up to 12 by turning it into like a literal supernatural thing or a literal science fiction thing. It's kind of that style of movie. So that is Relic in a nutshell. So I will ask Tim the question. Tim, how did you feel about Relic? And Relic from 2020, not Relic from 1996 or whatever.
I actually like this quite a bit. I had heard some people talking about it, and like a lot of people seem to really like it and had been making a big deal about it. And if you remember, we watched a trailer for it, and I don't think I forget where you landed, but I wasn't like too hot on the trailer. Like it seemed like maybe it might be interesting, but also, yeah, it hadn't done that much for me. And when I started watching it, I even admit I wasn't really too crazy in the beginning. Like it was this is a very slow burn movie, and I was a little worried that it might be a little too slow for my tastes. And but there is like a point, maybe about like halfway through ish or so, where yeah, I did kind of start to feel very sucked in to what's going on. And there's a good chunk of it where there's like a real life horror to it, which is the what it's like to have a family member going through like dementia and stuff, which is like a really really just horrible, like unsettling thing. I mean I'm lucky enough that I haven't really had much of that, but I do remember my mom like telling me stories about her grandmother, who she she lived to be quite old. She was like in her 90s, and yeah, she had some stuff like that going on and was seeing things towards the end. And it's just, yeah, like the stories I would hear just sounds like really, terrible and scary. And it's like, how do you deal with someone going through that? So, there's this like, like you said, like this real life component to it that's very compelling, but not, not the kind of horror that you usually think of when a horror movie. But then, I would say the kind of like last act, I really thought was phenomenal. And, I like the ending, which I dare say is kind of different too. I feel like what we're usually used to. So yeah, overall, I will say that I did enjoy this movie.
Interesting. No, I kind of fall somewhere in the middle of enjoyment and not enjoyment, I guess. This is probably the most. I was actually a little bit worried about talking about this one because as it was going on, and I was kind of not super into it. I was not really super feeling it. I appreciate kind of what it's doing, especially towards the end. I think the last like 15-20 minutes is probably its strongest, and where it's the direction maybe really sings, and the horror imagery really kind of comes into it. And I get kind of obviously the point that it's making and the metaphor that it's using for everything, and yada yada yada. I will say that I did kind of feel the slow burn getting to me, and I'm someone who enjoys a slow burn when I think that the burn itself is engrossing, where I'm kind of into the slow teasing and but I think ultimately with this one there was maybe just a little bit too much family drama with the bickering back and forth between Kay and Sam and their relationship. And I appreciate that this movie wants to have 3 generations of the same family. The whole idea that the worry that this will sort of be hereditary and it'll go through the family, and like the daughter's worried that she's going to do the same thing, and then Sam's going to be worried that maybe she'll suffer for the same thing, and there's elements of that kind of play into the film. I found myself kind of not super pulled in by the vast majority of it though, and I thought it was like well directed. Like for the most part, I thought there was a lot of creepy little moments in the camera work, and I felt like the moment under the bed, because the moment I liked in the trailer was the moment where she looked, Kay looks under the bed and there's just a sort of vague outline of someone breathing under there, and it's kind of creepy. And I thought that was a really well done moment in the trailer, and it was still well done in the full movie. But those moments are very few and far between for such a long time.
And it's not a very long movie. Like it was only about 90 minutes, right? Yeah,
it was like 88 minutes I think total. And I would say that it's not really until about the hour mark where it kind of full on becomes a horror movie. And that's not actually a problem in and of itself. If I was like super into the drama, I wouldn't really care about that. If anything, I'd appreciate that it was able to hold off and kind of become something, metamorphosize into something else at the end and feel natural. But unfortunately, I kind of just felt the burn of it. And then by the time it did get to the horror stuff, I did think it was better and I was kind of into it. But I'd spent so long not being into it that it never had quite the impact that I think the movie wanted to hit me with. It was just kind of like, yeah, this is kind of cool, and I get what it's doing, and I just felt detached ultimately. So unfortunately for me, it's a bit of a misfire, even though everyone else seems to love it. The Rotten Tomato scores like through the roof and everything else, but I can be in the minority once in a while. It's fine.
No, I mean I'm not like too far off from you. Like I think the by the end it made up enough for me that like I don't necessarily want to say like I forgive it, but like there's enough enjoyment from me there. But I am kind of in the same boat where I'm not loving it as much as like a lot of other people seem to do. Like, it seems like kind of people are making this out to be like the next Hereditary or something. Like, oh man, like this great family drama horror movie that's just like, like an instant classic. And it's like, oh yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but at the same time, I did enjoy it. I do think it tackles like a hard subject and does pretty well with kind of dealing with that. And and yeah, it's I think yeah, like you're kind of getting at, like, it maybe if it had been peppered with some of the more like weirder elements, or the like kind of creepier supernaturally kind of stuff, like you don't have to go full on from moment one, but maybe if they kind of sprinkle it out a little bit more in the beginning and middle, and it might have been a little more palpable. Or
I don't even know if
something.
it need more like story beats. I think just there's definitely this feeling for a lot of the film where, while there's kind of that tone over the whole thing, it doesn't necessarily feel like anything that creepy did happen. Because once it kind of once it reveals part of like what happened, like part of where she was, it's actually kind of an interesting idea. And I almost wondered if that if there was just one tease of something like that early on that just made us kind of think about it and have it in the back of our heads the entire time. I don't know. Maybe that would have been something. Or maybe the opposite. Maybe it's just not ambiguous enough. Maybe this works better if we're questioning if, like, is this really just dementia and there's actually nothing weird going on, but I think the other two characters just, they see enough little weird things just here or there that there's something off, and it feels like there's definitely something going on. So I think it almost feels a little bit frustrating that it takes so long to even acknowledge that there is something else going on, because there clearly is. Maybe that's the frustrating element of the slow burn. I don't know. I worry about this stuff because I don't have anything to make fun of. This is not like one of these other VOD movies where I come in here and I'm like, it's so stupid and the characters are so dumb and what were they thinking? The fools! I'd love to come in here and be like, Australia, you culpable assholes, what are you doing producing movies like this? I don't feel that way. It's totally fine, and I get why other people like it. I think if you've got a personal experience with dementia, with a family member or whatever, I feel like this movie might speak to you in a lot of ways, in a way that I maybe didn't quite bridge the gap. And what I mean by that is that I don't necessarily have to have experienced something to get engrossed and like get the point of a movie about a subject. In fact, one of the strengths of filmmaking and art in general is that it can make me empathize with something that I've never experienced or considered or anything like that. But
Jurassic Park's a great example of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that, yes. But you have this kind of middle ground where you'll get movies that aren't like amazing, that are just alright, and those movies work really well for people who already have the empathy and already have the personal experience, but don't necessarily completely create it for people that have never felt it. They don't like build it from scratch. And I feel like that's one of these movies where if you already have an experience with this, if you already have some sort of attachment to the subject, I feel like this is probably going to hit a lot harder than it otherwise would. As it is, I
I get what you're saying, and I would definitely not be surprised if the person who wrote this movie, if they came out and said like, yeah, I had a family member that went through this, and part of the way I kind of did like my grieving with it was writing this movie, and it was kind of cathartic. Like, I could totally see something like that being the case. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, but I wouldn't be surprised. But I mean, I get what you mean, and then I think we kind of talked about this before in other episodes, but so it's okay for a movie to just be okay. Like everything is such like extreme on the internet. Everything is either a 10 or a 2. It's this is either the best thing ever or the biggest piece of dog shit. And it's like, hey, there's nothing wrong with a movie just being like fine or okay, or plenty of good films that are like 5, 6s, 7s.
Yeah, I don't want to be too harsh because I don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's well directed. There's some nice little moments sprinkled throughout. It does look like a movie, unlike other movies that kind of hit VOD and whatnot. And this, apparently as a Stan original, so it was a straight to streaming movie, even in its country of origin. So. So I mean, yeah, credit to those things, and I feel like it's a relatively good cast. I feel like none of these actors feel out of place. It's kind of just maybe boils down to a script that's maybe more to my taste, I guess, more than anything. Maybe this just doesn't quite work for me, but I found it just kind of, I don't want to say plodding along, but there was a definite kind of feeling, once maybe over the 30-minute mark where I was like, I could be checking Twitter right now. Maybe I should check Twitter. It kind of had that kind of okay, I nothing else is kind of grabbing me at this point, and maybe this is just a simple screenwriting technique of making sure you have these punchy moments to keep drawing your audience in throughout. But
I could have used more jokes for sure. It wasn't
jokes?
Yeah, it was. I wasn't laughing that much, unfortunately.
I can't say I laughed once. Admittedly, I don't think the movie was going for humor, but in fact, it was kind of a dreary, depressing 90 minutes, if we're honest.
Sure, yeah, but you got to find the humor somewhere.
Sure.
Could have used like a wacky salesman or something coming over and maybe slipping on some mops or something. I don't know. Slipping
on some mops, not a floor that's been mopped. Slipping on some mops himself.
No, it's like a salesman who comes over. He's trying to sell mops and he's trying to give a demonstration, but then he trips on all the mops, and then it kind of the mop is on his head and it kind of looks like a wig, and he has to kind of separate it. And then he says something like, "I'll see myself out." That would be funny. And then that would be a nice way to be like, all right, we've had the serious. Now we got a nice little laugh. Now we can get back to the serious. So I don't want to give notes, I don't want to say what the movie should have been, but I do think a scene like that would have helped.
I don't want to give notes, but there should be a scene where a salesman, a mop salesman, yes, I was going to correct you, say it's more of a trip if it's over a mop, but you actually did that yourself and said trip the second time, so that's fair play.
And if anyone wants to do some fan art of that, I would be more than happy to take a look at that.
I feel like some people are coming to this review because they care about this film. They don't know us yet. This is the first time they've discovered Streams After Midnight, and less than 20 minutes into this review of this serious parable on dementia, Tim's talking about why there should be a mop salesman doing slapstick comedy.
I mean, hey, I'm no Hollywood. Well, I'm no Stan Wood screenwriter, but those are just my thoughts.
Okay. Hey, as long as we're on the same page. So yeah, I suppose we'll give the spoiler warning and get into the movie then. So I will take this time. Oh, maybe I won't. Oh no! My sticky post-it note on my computer is not there.
Why is it sticky? Gross.
But yeah, because post-it notes are traditionally not sticky.
I guess they are when you get done with them.
Oh my god. All right, let me take this time to thank our Patreon producers, Alison M. Fordyce, Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Shaw, Board Now, and Zammer Jammer. They're all patrons at $20 or up, which makes them producers. But you can support us, of course, for as little as $1 per month at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, and you get some bonuses for the trouble. You get an exclusive extra episode of Streams After Midnight every month at the $1 tier. There's a whole back catalogue now. I think must be hitting 20 movies at this point in the back catalogue that aren't available to the public. So you can get access to all those. And I think we've got a doozy lined up for later this month, actually, now I think about it.
Oh, doozy for sure.
By the time this goes out, it'll probably already up, actually. But yes, so look forward to that. Let's just say there's a scene with bees. That's all I'm going to say. So look forward to that. You also get bonus episodes of other shows we do, of course, at the tier. At the $5 tier, you get to vote on an episode once per month, and you get early access to all the movie review episodes by one day. So go over to patreon.com/MailFistTV and see if you want some bonus content, but most importantly, help keep all the content coming and show us your support and all that jazz. Yes.
Does the DC show, do they do bonus episodes where they like review like, I don't know, like Batman Forever or something?
No bonus episodes for the DC Comics podcast, no.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
They get early access though, and they get other things here or there, but no bonus episodes.
Okay. Maybe I'll see if Connor wants to review all the maybe like Batman and Steel and the real DC movies, not this newer crap.
I mean, me and Car did review the Tim Burton and Joel Schumacher Batmans like a year or two ago.
All right, well, we'll see. We'll do
Steel.
We'll do Steel. We'll do my unproduced Challengers of the Unknown script. Yeah.
Dear. Are you up to date on Doom Patrol, Tim?
Yes.
Yes. So you met the pioneers of the Uncharted.
Wait, did I?
Maybe you're maybe behind one still.
Oh, maybe. It doesn't sound familiar. Oh, wait, those are like the people from space?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah, was it like Captain Whiz Bang or something? Yeah.
It's because you said Challenges of the Unknown, so it just made me think of
it.
Yeah. So there you go. What a tangent that was. So full spoilers then for Relic from this point on, so you have been warned. So yeah, the first like 20 minutes of the movie, like Edna's nowhere to be found, and it's kind of looking around, like go to the police and doing search parties and seeing weird mold stains on the walls and things like that. But once Edna shows up, it's kind of where the movie really gets going. And Edna doesn't want to talk about where she's been. She doesn't even acknowledge she's been missing. And they kind of start to notice weird things about her. Like, one of the big sort of hints of dementia is that she gives Sam this like her old ring. Like, I don't know if it's like her old engagement ring or whatever, but she gives her this ring, and maybe 10 minutes later, the next day in the movie, she accuses Sam of stealing it. She's like, "Why are you wearing that ring? You try to rob from me?" And she gets really upset about it, and it becomes this thing, and she forgets that she gave it to her. So it really kind of goes down that path of doing this. There's a lot of the family dramas here where you have Kay at one point actually goes back to the city of Melbourne to look for a retirement home because she's starting to think that her mother can't live alone anymore. She's forgetting too many things. She's making too many accidents. She's all this stuff. So a lot of the movie is this. The middle of the movie is all this stuff. So your mileage may vary depending on how engrossing you find the actual drama side of things. There's some little hints that are built, like when they're looking through drawings at one point, there was like a shed out back that like it was like an extra little house that the great grandfather lived in, and he apparently had dementia. So there's evidence of it from even before Edna's generation in the family. But I mean that is kind of the middle portion of the movie. It's all that stuff. And
I think like you said, it's well done. Like I think again, like all these these are all good actors, and their direction is pretty solid. But yeah, it's just not the most exciting. And I think you bring up a good point. Like it is gonna depend on how much you kind of find that kind of drama engrossing. Which I kind of was feeling it for a little bit, but then there were times when it does get to be a little much and you kind of check out. But again, it's never like really for the the quality of it. Like it's never really done poorly, I would say.
It's one of those things where I think I checked the time at about an hour, and it was before things sort of hit the fan, and I was kind of like, wait, it still doesn't feel like we're actually building to a third act yet. Like what this movie has that lackadaisical pacing of a lot of VOD movies in some ways, which is maybe its biggest flaw. I would say it's not so much that it wants to focus on the drama side of things. I'm actually completely cool with that. It's maybe just that there's not enough escalation throughout in a reasonable paced way.
Yeah, because there was like interesting stuff. Like I think when she like goes out into the woods and she's like eating the family pictures and stuff, like that kind of stuff I found interesting. It could potentially have like, seen more of that kind of stuff, but yeah, I don't think there was like as much of that kind of stuff as you would think.
Yeah. One of the things that maybe hints at something more sinister, though, is that the neighbor, there's a person with learning difficulties who lives next door who is just about 18 years old, because clearly Sam knows this guy, because she's like, oh, you're 18 now, when did that happen? So this is clearly like a sort of younger neighbor she's known since she was a kid. And it comes up that he doesn't come over at the house anymore. He used to come over and like, be friendly with Edna, and he stopped doing it a while back. And it turns out later on, when she's like curious, when she really thinks Edna's acting weird, Sam goes to the dad of the neighbor and says, hey, like, what happened between them? Why does he not go over anymore? And he explains that they were playing hide and seek, and then Edna forgot that and locked him in like this creepy attic for like hours. And the dad had to go looking for him, and he was kind of scared, and it was this traumatic experience. So it gives you this sense that there's something a bit more sinister. Obviously, ultimately what the movie's building to, though, is that where Edna went away for like several days is actually just inside the house. There's kind of a supernatural, like, the mold kind of leads to like a closet, and it's like a labyrinth that keeps changing, because when Sam ends up in there and we're following her through this labyrinth, like, hallways are kind of changing, and not like an Inception where you can see like a visual effect, just in the way that like she'll turn around and there's another hall there, or that hall she just went down is now behind her now, or in front of her. And it plays with your mind that way. That's kind of what the back chunk does.
Yeah, and I really like this stuff. I thought it was like all like proper creepy, and I like kind of some of the weird stuff that happens. Especially, I like when it kind of, the like corridors and hallways keep getting smaller and smaller. That like to the point where she can like barely fit in and kind of has to like bust through the wall and everything. And I thought I could kind of feel like the claustrophobia in that stuff, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, conceptually, I like this quite a bit. Like I say, I think at this point in the movie, it was just so late on that the movie had already kind of lost me by this point, so I just wasn't feeling that excited by it. Maybe this is the sort of thing where maybe more of the movie could have been like someone getting trapped in this maze, behind the walls essentially, and no one knowing, and speculating where did Sam go? Where'd she go? But it's around this same time though where Edna starts acting especially creepy, where she's basically cutting herself, because she does this thing throughout the movie where she's sort of carving candles. She's doing like sort of fancy candle art, and she eventually cuts a lot of her hands, and she urinates on the floor. And
oh yeah, see, that's where you could have used them up.
I love the idea that you want this slapstick comedy scene to take place at this point in the movie where things are really starting to go like bananas for the the third act and everything's going crazy. This is the moment where you want the slapstick comedy scene with the mop salesman. Or do you want that scene to be earlier and then have Emily Mortimer, have Kay go like, damn, we really should have bought a mop from that guy.
There you go. That would have been great. That would be a nice callback.
But it's when she puts Edna in for a bath that she ends up seeing her like cut herself, and she's trying to get to her.
And we've been kind of seeing throughout the movie that she has these like really dark bruises, I guess, or I don't know if they're like kind of bruises or scabs. Or...
Yeah, it actually looks like the mold that's on the walls that seems to be growing. Oh, yeah. So it's kind of spreading through over her chest and up to her shoulders, and it's getting worse and worse. But she eventually kind of like follows Edna into the labyrinth, and she sort of, and probably one of my favorite shots of the whole movie is her sneaking up behind her as like old woman Edna's like down crouched down. She's doing something, but you can't see it because she's got her back turned to us. And then when she turns around, you see that she's actually peeling off her skin and revealing essentially like a demon that's like living underneath her. The idea being that she's already been taken over. This is one of these movies actually, because especially when it gets to the ending, we'll talk about that in a minute, where. Like, okay, so this is all very literal. There's a demon, their mother never came back. But the ending sort of solidifies it as one of those movies where it really doesn't work without the analogy. Like, it's clearly a metaphor for something, and if you take the metaphor away, the movie kind of doesn't make a lot of sense. It's particularly the ending. The ending makes very little sense without the metaphor. But, she runs, and then she ends up running into Sam, and they kind of break out of a wall into the house, and they're going to leave, they're going to run, and Kay's like, you know what, I can't leave her, I can't abandon her. So she locks the door, so Sam's safe on the outside, but she's like, I'm not going with you, I'm going to protect her anyway, even though she's turned into a monster. And again, kind of the metaphor for dementia is kind of here, where it's like, she's not really my mum anymore, she's not that person anymore. You know, you barely recognize who she is anymore. And it's a horror movie, so it's like, you know, visually represented with an actual demon whose skin's all, you know, and it's not actually all off yet. I mean, because when she literally carries Edna up to the bedroom and then peels off the rest of her skin, and it's just this sort of demon that's left, but a weak demon, not one that's like running after and like killing. It's just like weak and kind of like slowly dying, and she lies down the bed behind it and kind of spoons with the Edna demon, and then Sam, who's, you know, found her way back into the house, comes in and then lies behind her mum. So we have this kind of, you know, 3 generations, with each one having the younger generation sort of hug them from behind. And the final moment of the movie is that that Sam notices in the back of Kay's shoulder that she's starting to develop the same kind of mold on her skin. The implication being that this is going to then happen to her, and then presumably one day to Sam, and it's that fear of that happening. I think what's bugging me is I feel like I've seen a better movie that's sort of played with this idea of like being scared of getting your parents, or like your parent that suffered dementia, so you're worried that you're going to get it, and that's like a sort of paranoid kind of element. I'm sure I've seen a movie that's done that and I really liked it, and I can't think of what it is now. It's bugging me. Tim disagrees. He thinks I'm making this up, but I'm sure I have. But because one of the little details actually throughout the movie is that Sam, until this final scene, or until like Kay's saying she's going to stay behind, I think that's the first time in the movie where she actually calls Kay mum. Up until that point, she just refers to her by Kay. Because I was actually, if it wasn't for a line about her, or how she refers to like the grandmother, I would have maybe even have suspected that she might even just be a younger sister, like a much younger sister. Because the way she was calling her by Kay, but no, they are mother and daughter. It's just this one of those movie things where she isn't calling her that until it's emotionally relevant. There, yeah. So
no, like I think that is. I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of a common thing, and not just in horror movies, but there's plenty of movies where, like the realization is like, oh my god, am I gonna end up just like my parents? I guess Goofy movie probably being one of the biggest examples of that. But yeah, no, that's certainly a real fear, and I actually quite like this ending. Like, not saying that like it's never been done before or anything, but I feel like you don't see this a lot of the time where someone does go like, no wait, like it is a strangely like sweet happy ending where they do have to embrace like the monster, quote unquote monster, that their mothers become, and like just seeing it so weak and frail, and then like laying down with it and spooning it. And I like that
just the casually way you said spooning it.
And I feel like other movies would have had something where like at this point, like like once they accept it, then like because she's kind of like all like I don't know, like dark, and like almost looks like there's like this kind of like well, I guess like the mold that's all over. But I feel like other movies would have had something where like the mold would start to peel off, and then the mother would break through and then be like, no, I'm here, I love you all, blah blah blah, like cut to them having a picnic or some shit. But like I like that this movie is like, no, like it's not like she's still this thing, like it's not like, hey, everything is better now. It's just the idea of we just have to learn to accept it, and accept that this might happen to us one day as well. So I like that approach.
There's an uplifting element to it of her like sticking by her no matter what, no matter how scary it is, no matter how hard it is, and that's kind of the uplifting part of the message. But it is a horror movie, so it wants to end with this moment of fear, this moment of, oh crap, it's going to happen to her too, kind of thing, right? Yeah. It is kind of a restrained ending in a lot of ways, which I do appreciate, but it's also kind of that thing where the movie isn't interested in kind of tying this into reality, but at this point in the movie, like how much do you explain some of the crap that went on here to the authorities or to anything else? So like, when the authorities come by the next day to like find the the dead mother, like the grandmother, is Edna like is actually looking like this demon still, or is she back to looking like a human? Like, how is any of this explained? And I'm not saying this is important. The point I'm just making is that this movie, once it goes deep into its metaphor, all it's interested in doing is having a nice dramatic ending to that metaphor. It's not interested in like tying it into like the real world of the movie again at that point. It's abandoned that. It's abandoned reality, and it's more just about how the characters feel and what it represents, and that's fine. And that's not a problem I have with anything. My problem is just purely much, but basically about the last 20 minutes where, while it's definitely got all the best elements of the movie, I was just kind of out of it, which is why I hate like not having anything like to like complain about or rant about and say this is terrible for this reason and that reason, or love it and say this is why it's great and this is why this works and this is why that works. It's very frustratingly in the middle for me, where it's competent in a lot of ways and lots of things it's doing. I can appreciate what it's doing and what it's trying to do with a lot of its themes and all that. I just ultimately didn't find it all that engaging, which I guess puts it kind of into VOD quality territory for me. Which seems to be the minority opinion, and that's fair. Everyone else can love it.
What I think is kind of funny is that I mostly agree with you, except for I really like the the ending, that kind of last final part, and I would say, as opposed to you who you're saying that by that point you were just kind of out of it. For me, it kind of like brought me back. Like like it actually like kind of uplifted me and I guess like to a bit, as opposed to just being like, well, this is good, but I'm zoned out at this point.
Yeah. No, I mean it's clearly like if I'm in the minority on this one, that's fine. It just didn't work for me, but it's and I can't really rate it that low, too low either. Like it is what it is. To cop out with a with a phrase that means nothing. It is what it is. So no.
I think it's like a decent enough watch. Maybe like if it does get put on like US Netflix or something at some point, it's worth checking out. But
you mean opposed to US Stan?
Exactly. I don't understand how comes when I was looking up to see if this was streaming anywhere, I didn't see anyone saying I could have watched it on Stan for free.
Because you don't have Stan. You'd have only gotten the US results.
I'm sure. I mean, I'll do a free trial of Stan if I can check it out.
What impresses me is that the entire time you were in Australia, you never encountered Stan.
No, I was too busy watching whatever weird television and hotel rooms I had. We talked about this before. All the audio was sped up.
yes. The PAL speed up. Yes, I recall. Which delighted me that you noticed that, because that was like oh, Tim's noticing a technical thing. Tim's usually oblivious to all these little details. Did you get a Hungry Jack's while you were there? That's the important question.
I did. Yes, absolutely. And like to the point where like I felt bad that I kept asking my wife like, today can we go to Hungry Jack's? I got they had like some like kind of like slushy fruity drink. I think it was like a Bursty or something like that. I get like a chippy sandwich or something. I don't know. I forget what it's called.
A chippy sandwich?
Something like that.
Wait, you telling me it wasn't just like a Whopper and like the normal menu?
They had like some like newer things.
Okay, they had some regional options, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, for everyone who's confused by this conversation, Hungry Jack's is the name in Australia for Burger King. Is there just in case anyone's not following this conversation at all? But yes,
there was a I think the real like standout in terms of like fast food places I went to is it was actually at the airport that I got it, but there was it was like a chicken place. I forget what it was. Maybe like Red Roosters, maybe something like that. That was really good. I liked quite a bit. Also a lot of good meat pies.
Yeah. Meat pies are. I never really knew that Australia did them, but they're a very UK thing. So, and Australia and the UK have a lot of things in common like that, I suppose. So, Yes, meat pies. I mean, we don't call them meat pies, we just call them pies. To us, a pie is got meat in it. Your steak pie, your chicken pie, your variety of pies. Mince pies. Yes.
All quite good.
Yeah.
I had a good, I think it was like a chicken curry pie I had, which I liked a lot.
Oh, I've had a chicken curry pie. Yeah, that's going to be nice. And I said mince pies, not to be confused with Christmas mince pies, which don't actually have mince in them. They have like fruit in them. That's a different thing. But
my God.
Look, it's a confusing thing. You just have to accept it and just move on with your life. I mean, that's pretty much Relic. I also don't have a whole lot to add with this one. This is kind of the worst type of movie for a conversation for me, because I have no hot takes. I have nothing exciting to say. I'm so glad you had your joke about the mop, because that was probably the highlight of the conversation for most people.
It's also a pretty straightforward movie. It's I mean, there's obviously a lot to look into with the metaphor angle of it, but it's not there's a lot of plot twists and turns, and the a lot of the drama scenes and stuff are pretty similar. It's not like there's a lot of escalation or a lot of crazy stuff. It's kind of what you'd expect. But I mean, it's maybe not the most interesting to talk about, but there's there's stuff there.
Well, would you like to rate it out of 10?
Sure. I'm still gonna give it a pretty decent score. So I think I'm gonna give it a 7, which because I don't think it's great or amazing, but I do think it is a slow burn, which it's not always a good thing. Sometimes I can appreciate slow burn movies when they're done good, and I think I wouldn't say this is necessarily done poorly, but like you said, you do kind of feel the slowness in the beginning, but then I think it makes up for it for me with the ending, and then also just again on a technical level, everything is very proficient, the acting, the direction, and there are little creepier moments spread throughout, but unfortunately, if maybe there was a little more going on, maybe if you didn't feel the slowness as much, if there's a few more interesting things peppered throughout, I think I'd give it a little bit of a higher score. But also, I don't know if that does that kind of take away from the movie if you does it maybe sully the kind of point if you I don't know, add a big CGI ghost or something in the beginning.
I was never asking for that. Don't mistake my request for some more excitement as I want a CGI ghost. How dare you? As opposed to you, who wants a CGI mop salesman.
It would be funny if they CGI'd him. No, but I think a 7. It is good, but I also do think it has I don't necessarily want to say flaws, but maybe just things that don't get me going as much as some other movies.
Hashtag release the mop cut. Yes. I am definitely going to go lower. I don't want to be too harsh, but I was so sort of zoned out by the time it got to the quote unquote good stuff that I feel very kind of blasé about the whole thing. So I'm going to go with what probably sounds quite harsh to a lot of people, but I'm going to go with a 5.5. And that's me acknowledging that it's got technical qualities, it's got things that are good about it, but ultimately I was just so out of it by the time I got to anywhere decent in the runtime that I just I just don't feel that enthusiastic about it, which is a shame, because I was hoping, given the reception, that this was going to be good and I was going to be into it, but unfortunately sometimes it just doesn't pan out. So here we are. This has been Screams After Midnight. You can let us know what you thought of the movie in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Like is really important because it lets YouTube know that we're worth recommending out and that people will find us, so that's a nice free way of supporting us. Of course, we mentioned Patreon earlier, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for bonuses. Guys on Twitter at Screams Midnight for all of the shenanigans, and if you you're there and stuff, you might get a chance to participate in things and all sorts. But so one last bit of business though before we go is I have to get Tim to pose for the thumbnail. So Tim, make sure your head's not cut off at the top of the camera. So sit back, and I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1 and say pose. So here we go. 3, 2, 1, pose. That's what you're going with. You're going with laughing hysterically as your thumbnail image for this one. Okay.
That's gonna get the clicks, man. People are gonna be hearing about this serious movie and they see, what's that laughing idiot? Like, I gotta hear what his take is.
I don't know if I have a traditional looking mop to hold up for the thumbnail, but maybe I'll have to track one down.
Yeah, CGI.
CGI. All right, thank you very much for joining us. This has been Screams After Midnight. We always appreciate your viewership, your listenership, your spookiness ship. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching scary movies, guys, and we will see you next time.